Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English story. The room buzzed with quiet anticipation as people settled into their seats. The stage was simple, adorned only with a microphone and a single spotlight. Daniel stepped forward, his confident posture contrasting with the warmth and humility his expression. He scanned the room, his eyes meeting the curious faces of the audience. "Good evening, everyone," Daniel began, his voice steady yet inviting. "Today, I want to share a story not about someone extraordinary, but about an ordinary person who decided to change their life. That person was me." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You see, I wasn't always the man you see standing here. I used to feel trapped in a routine, frustrated by my own lack of progress. My life wasn't terrible, but it felt like I was treading water, never moving forward, never sinking, just stuck. The rut of stagnation." Daniel painted a vivid picture of his past. A small apartment with peeling paint, an unfulfilling 9-to-5 job that barely paid the bills, and a growing sense of dissatisfaction that he couldn't shake. "I remember waking up every morning to the same alarm clock, hitting snooze, and dragging myself through a routine that felt meaningless. My dreams of becoming successful seemed like distant fantasies, and I had convinced myself that they were out of reach." Financial struggles weighed heavily on him. His bills piled up, and the stress of making ends meet consumed his thoughts. There were nights when I'd sit at my kitchen table with a calculator, trying to figure out how to stretch my paycheck just a little further. It felt like no matter how hard I worked, I was running in place. And then there was his career or lack thereof. I was stuck in a job that didn't challenge me, didn't excite me, and certainly didn't align with the person I wanted to become. I stayed because it felt safe. I told myself, at least I have a job. But deep down, I knew I was settling. Daniel's voice softened as he touched on his inner struggles. The worst part wasn't the money or the job, it was the self-doubt. I started to believe that maybe I wasn't capable of more, that maybe I didn't deserve success. The breaking point, the turning point came during what Daniel called his week of failures. It started with a rejection, he said, shaking his head with a wry smile. I had applied for a promotion at work, one that I desperately wanted, and I didn't get it. My manager told me I wasn't assertive enough. Hearing those words crushed me. Shortly after, personal relationship fell apart. I was dating someone who couldn't understand why I wasn't more ambitious. She told me I was too comfortable with mediocrity. At first, her words stung, but later, I realized she wasn't entirely wrong. Finally, the breaking point came when his car broke down, leaving him stranded on the side of the road. I remember sitting there, waiting for a tow truck, and feeling like my life was falling apart. It wasn't just the car, it was everything. I thought, how did I get here? How did I let myself get so far off track? The decision to change. Daniel leaned forward, his voice growing more intense. In that moment, I made a choice. I didn't know how, but I decided I was going to change my life. No more excuses. No more waiting for the perfect time. I was done being a victim of my circumstances. He began small. The first thing I did was write down my real goals, not vague dreams. I wanted financial stability, fulfilling career, and to feel proud of myself again. But writing them down wasn't enough. I had to take action. The audience listened intently as Daniel described his initial steps. I started by cutting out distractions. I stopped spending hours mindlessly scrolling through social media and binge watching TV shows. Instead, I used that time to read, to learn, and to work on myself. He also began to cultivate self-discipline. I set a strict schedule for myself. Every morning, I woke up an hour earlier to focus on personal development. I started exercising regularly, not because I loved it, but because I knew it would build my resilience. A leap of faith. Daniel's first real test came when he stumbled upon an opportunity to join a public speaking class. I was terrified, he admitted, laughing. The idea of standing in front of people and sharing my thoughts made my stomach churn. But I knew that if I wanted to grow, I had to face my fears. He signed up for the class, despite his reservations. On the first day, my hands were shaking and my voice cracked as introduced myself. But something incredible happened. I didn't die of embarrassment. In fact, the more I spoke, the more I realized that I had a voice worth sharing. That decision marked a turning point. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of confidence. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about showing up and trying. I learned that growth happens outside of your comfort zone, and sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith. Daniel paused, letting his words resonate with the audience. "That's where I'll stop for now," he said, his smile warm but determined. "But I want you to think about this. What's one small step you can take today to start your own journey toward growth and success? Because the hardest part is often just taking the first step, the path to growth and success." As the applause subsided, Daniel returned to the microphone with a soft chuckle. "I can see some of you are eager to know what happened next. Let me tell you, the journey from taking that first leap of faith to where I am today wasn't a straight path. It was full of twists, setbacks, and lessons I never saw coming. But every step taught me something valuable." He took a deep breath and continued, "After joining the public speaking class, I felt energized. For the first time in years, I was investing in myself. But it wasn't long before I realized that a single action wouldn't change everything. Growth requires consistency, and consistency demands discipline. The power of small habits. Daniel began to focus on building habits that would support his growth. I made a list of things I wanted to improve: my communication skills, my financial situation, and my physical and mental health. But instead of trying to tackle everything at once, I broke it down into small, manageable steps. He shared an example. Take my finances, for instance. I was living paycheck to paycheck, constantly stressed about money. Instead of trying to fix it overnight, I started with a simple habit: tracking my expenses. Every day, I wrote down what I spent and reviewed it at the end of the week. It was eye-opening. Realized how much money I wasted on things I didn't even care about. With that knowledge, Daniel started budgeting. I began setting aside a small percentage of my income each month. It wasn't much at first, but over time, it added up. Seeing that progress motivated me to keep going. The same approach applied to his health. I didn't become a fitness enthusiast overnight. I started by committing to a 1-minute walk every morning. Just 10 minutes. But those walks turned into jogs and eventually into regular gym sessions. The key was starting small and building momentum. Dealing with setbacks. Of course, the path wasn't without challenges. Daniel's voice grew serious as he recounted a period when he felt like giving. There was a time, about 6 months into my journey, when everything seemed to go wrong. I lost a freelance gig I was relying on. I got sick and couldn't keep up with my fitness routine, and I started doubting whether all my efforts were even worth it. He paused, looking out at the audience. I'll be honest, it was tempting to fall back into old habits. To tell myself, maybe this is just how life is supposed to be. But then I remembered why I started. I didn't want to stay stuck. So, instead of giving up, adjusted. Daniel explained how he learned to see setbacks as opportunities to adapt. When I couldn't work out, I focused on eating healthier. When I lost that gig, I used the extra time to learn new skills that would make me more competitive in the job market. Every time life threw a curveball, I asked myself, what can I do right now to move forward? Even if it's just an inch? Surrounding yourself with supportive people. Another turning point came when Daniel realized the importance of his environment. I used to surround myself with people who didn't share my goals or values. Some of them were negative, always complaining about their own lives but never doing anything to change. Others were well-meaning but didn't understand why I wanted more for myself. Their doubts started seeping into my own thoughts. One day, Daniel made a difficult decision. I began distancing myself from relationships that drained me and sought out people who inspired me. I joined networking groups, attended workshops, and connected with mentors who believed in personal growth. He smiled warmly. One of those mentors gave me a piece of advice that changed my perspective forever. They said, if you're the smartest or most motivated person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That hit me hard. It made me realize the value of surrounding myself with people who pushed me to be better. Learning to celebrate progress. Another lesson Daniel shared was the importance of celebrating small victories. I used to be so focused on the big picture that I'd overlook the progress I was making along the way. I thought success was this giant milestone I had to reach, but I've learned that growth happens in the tiny moments. He shared a story about his first public speaking gig outside th classroom. It was a small event, maybe 20 people in the audience, and I was terrified. My voice shook, and I stumbled over my words a few times. But when it was over, people came up to me and told me they were inspired. That moment wasn't perfect, but it was progress, and I let myself celebrate it. Daniel encouraged the audience to do the same. Whether it's completing a project, saving your first $100, or simply showing up when you didn't feel like it, celebrate that. Every step counts, no matter how small. The leap that changed everything. The climax of Daniel's story came when he took on a life-changing opportunity, a chance to lead a workshop at a professional conference. I wasn't ready, he admitted with a laugh. At least, that's what I told myself. I thought, what if I mess up? What if people don't take me seriously? But then I remembered something I'd learned. Growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. So, Daniel said yes. I prepared as much as I could. But the night before the workshop, I still felt like an imposter. Kept thinking about all the ways it could go wrong. But then, I made a choice. Instead of focusing on my fears, I focused on the people. I wanted to help. That shift in mindset made all the difference. The workshop was a success, not because it was flawless, because Daniel showed up authentically. I shared my story, my struggles, and my lessons. And by the end of the session, people were coming up to me, saying, "Your story gave me hope." That's when I realized that success isn't about being perfect, it's about making an impact. Daniel paused, his expression thoughtful. "That's where I'll stop for today," he said, his voice steady but warm. "But remember, this growth and success aren't destinations, they're journeys. And every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the person you're meant to be." The path to growth and success. As the applause subsided once more, Daniel returned to the microphone. His smile widened as he addressed the audience. "You've heard about the small steps, the setbacks, and the leaps of faith that brought me here. But let's talk about something we all experience, yet rarely discuss openly: self-doubt. Because if there's one thing I've learned on this journey, it's that your mind can either be your greatest ally or your biggest obstacle." Battling the inner critic. Daniel shifted his weight slightly, his tone growing more introspective. Self-doubt is like a shadow. It follows you wherever you go, whispering things like, "You're not good enough," or "What if you fail?" For a long time, I let that voice control me. Every decision I made, every opportunity one turned down, was because of fear. He leaned closer to the audience. "But here's the thing about fear: it's a liar. It magnifies your weaknesses and hides your strengths." I remember a time early in my career when I was offered a project that could have been a huge breakthrough for me. But instead of saying yes, I said, "I'm not ready." And you know what? That project went to someone else, someone less experienced but more confident. Watching them succeed was a wake-up call for me. Daniel shared how he began to confront his inner critic. I started writing down every negative thought I had about myself, and then challenged each one. For every "I'm not good enough," I'd write, "I'm learning and growing every day." For every "what if I fail," I'd write, "What if I succeed?" Over time, I realized that the voice in my head wasn't the truth, it was just a habit. And like any habit, could be changed. The role of gratitude in growth. Daniel paused, letting the room settle before continuing. "Now, let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in the pursuit of success: gratitude." When you're focused on growing and achieving, it's easy to get caught up in what you don't have yet. But if you're always chasing the next thing, you'll miss the beauty of what's right in front of you. He smiled softly as he recounted a pivotal moment. A few years ago, I was so focused on hitting my goals that I started feeling burnt out. Nothing I achieved felt like enough. One night, I came home exhausted, and my daughter handed me a drawing she made in school. It was a picture of our family with the words "Best Dad" written in big, wobbly letters. That moment stopped me in my tracks. I realized that no amount of success would ever mean more than the love and connection I already had. Daniel explained how he started a daily gratitude practice. Every morning, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. Could be as simple as a good cup of coffee or as profound as the support of my family. Gratitude shifts your perspective, reminds you of what's going right, even when everything feels wrong. The importance of accountability. The motivational speaker's tone shifted again, becoming more direct. Now, let's talk about accountability. Because no matter how motivated you are, there will be days when you want to give up. Days when you'll tell yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," or "One break won't hurt." That's where accountability comes in. Daniel described how he found an accountability partner early in his journey. It was a friend who was also trying to make changes in their life. Every week, we'd check in with each other. No excuses. No sugarcoating. If I said I'd read 2 chapters of a book or apply for a new job, I had to report back. Knowing someone else was counting on me kept me honest. He emphasized that accountability doesn't have to come from another person. You can hold yourself accountable too. Set goals, track your progress, and reward yourself when you hit milestones. Just make sure you're consistent. Growth isn't about doing big things once in a while, it's about doing small things every single day. Finding your why. Daniel's eyes scanned the room, his expression thoughtful. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's the importance of finding your why. Why do you want to grow? Why do you want to succeed? Because without a clear reason, it's easy to lose your way when things get tough. He shared his own why. For me, it's my family. It's the desire to be a role model for my kids, to show them that it's never too late to change your life. It's also about leaving a legacy, knowing that my story might inspire someone else to take that first step toward their dreams. Daniel encouraged the audience to reflect on their motivations. Your why might be different from mine, and that's okay. Maybe it's about proving to yourself that you can do it. Maybe it's about creating a better future for your loved ones. Whatever it is, hold on to it. Write it down. Remind yourself of it every day. Because when you know your why, you'll find way. The power of reflecting. As Daniel began to wrap up his talk, he touched on one fina lesson: the importance of reflection. We live in a world that's always moving, always demanding more. But growth requires pause. It requires you to step back, and ask yourself, what's working? What's not? What do I need to change? He recounted how he started a weekly reflection practice. Every Sunday, I spend 30 minutes reviewing my week. Ask myself 3 questions. What did I accomplish? What did I learn? And what can I do better next week? That simple habit has helped me stay focused and aligned with my goals. Daniel looked out at the audience. His voice filled with conviction. Reflection isn't about beating yourself up for what you didn't do. It's about celebrating your progress and planning your next steps. It's about giving yourself the grace to grow. As the room fell silent, Daniel took a step back and smiled. That's the heart of growth and success. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up, learning from your mistakes, and never losing sight of your potential. Each of you has the power to transform your life. All it takes is one step and then another. The audience erupted into applause, their faces a mix of inspiration and determination. Daniel had given them not just his story, but a roadmap for their own journeys, leaving them eager to take that next step toward growth and success. The path to growth and success. Daniel stood in front of the audience, his hands resting lightly on the podium. The energy in the room had shifted over the course of his talk. What began as a quiet curiosity had transformed into a shared sense of possibility and hope. He took a deep breath, letting the silence settle before speaking. You know, he began, his voice steady and reflective. When look back at everything I've been through, every failure, every moment of doubt, every hard lesson, I realize something. Growth isn't about achieving perfection. It's about becoming a little better each day. It's about progress, not perfection. The power of choice. Daniel paused, scanning the faces in the room. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that every single one of us has the power to choose. To choose how we respond to setbacks. To choose how we spend our time. To choose what kind of person we want to become. He shared a story of a turning point in his life. There was a time when I was stuck in fear, stuck in doubt, stuck in my own excuses. And then one day, I made a choice. I chose to stop waiting for the perfect moment and started creating my own moments. I chose to stop blaming my circumstances and started taking responsibility for my future. His gaze softened as he continued. That choice wasn't easy. Growth never is. But it was the most important decision I've ever made. Because in that moment, I realized something that changed everything. Success isn't something you find, something you build. A shared journey. Daniel's tone became warmer, more personal. And here's the thing. I'm not standing here today because I'm extraordinary. I'm standing here because I made a decision to keep going, even when it was hard. And you can make that same decision. Your path might look different from mine, but the principles are the same. Growth and success aren't reserved for the lucky or the gifted, they're for anyone willing to put in the work. He smiled, a flicker of emotion crossing his face. I can't tell you exactly what your journey will look like, but I can promise you this: if you stay committed, if you keep learning, and if you never give up on yourself, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. The final message. The room was silent, the audience hanging on every word. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. So here's my challenge to you. When you leave here today, take one step. Just one. Maybe it's setting a goal. Maybe it's letting go of a limiting belief. Maybe it's simply believing that you're capable of more. Whatever it is, take that step. Because every journey starts with a single step. He straightened, his tone firm but encouraging. The path to growth and success isn't easy, but it's worth it. And remember, you're not alone. Every person in this room is walking their own path, facing their own challenges. So support each other, lift each other up, and most importantly, believe in yourself. You've got everything you need to succeed right here, right now. Closing applause. The room erupted into applause, the sound filling every corner of the space. Daniel stepped back, a wave of gratitude washing over him as he took in the smiling faces and hopeful expressions. He had shared his story, his struggles, and his victories not just to inspire, but to remind everyone in the room that they, too, had the power to transform their lives. As he left the stage, Daniel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His journey wasn't over. There was always more to learn, more to grow, but he knew he had made a difference. And in that moment, he was reminded of the truth that had guided him all along. Growth and success are not destinations, but lifelong journeys. I'm so glad you spent this time with me. If you liked the story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Take care, and see you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English story.